Welcome to the Short Term Show, the show about short-term rentals and long-term wealth, with real property owners hosting real properties who are crushing it in the vacation and short-term rental space. And here's your host, Avery Carl.
Come party with me, Cashflow Carl, at BPCon. I'm hosting the short-term rental workshop. You can sign up for this when you sign up for BPCon. You can do that at biggerpockets.com/events. This is October 15th. October 15th through the 17th for the event. I am speaking at 2 different presentations. But what you're looking to sign up for is the short-term rental workshop, hosted by yours truly, Cashflow Carl, the Reverend of Real Estate, and Avery Carl. So the short-term rental workshop, BPCon 2023, October 15th. Sign up before it sells out.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Short Term Show. I know I say I have a super cool episode every time, but this one I'm particularly interested in, having grown up in an SEC football town, and that is game day rentals. And I don't think that this has been explored enough. I find it very interesting. Maybe I'll go buy one, but first, we'll introduce our really cool panel that we have to kind of talk about this. So first, we've got Jennifer Horn. Jennifer, do you want to introduce yourself really quick?
Sure. Hi, guys. Jennifer, we have 7 rentals across multiple markets. We're in Gulf Shores and the Smokies, and we have 4 units now here in Tuscaloosa. And so we're going to highlight the units in Tuscaloosa today.
All right. For those of you who don't know, and I'm sure you do, Tuscaloosa is where the University of Alabama is. So big football school.
Roll Tide.
All right. Next, we have Ben Vale. Ben, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Benjamin Vale. I'm the owner of Hospitality. We're a short-term rental management company and brokerage in Columbus, Ohio, and we're also in surrounding cities, Cincinnati to Cleveland. So all over Ohio, we manage about 140 rentals. About 120 of those are short-term, some long-term. And we have several near the Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio. And so we are here today to talk about game day rentals.
Okay, let's do this. I'm very excited about this. I love talking about things that I want to do but haven't yet. So I'm super excited. So let's start off here. And I think I know the answer to this, but how do you choose what market you want to buy game day rentals in?
For us, we moved to Tuscaloosa 2 years ago. My husband is active duty Army, so we've had a unique experience moving around every couple of years. So we typically buy real estate in every city that we live in. And so we landed in Tuscaloosa a few years ago, and there's a lot of money here, and we decided to capitalize on it. If you don't live in the market, I would recommend choosing a place that you are well connected or can become well connected in. As you know, you've got to have your cleaners, your real estate agents, and your contractors. So that would be my recommendation if you don't live near a large university.
Ben, what do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I mean, it was a clear choice. I'm a graduate of the Ohio State University. All of my friends, my family, everybody from around here, it is a way of life. And so I didn't really have any other choice. That's where my business is. We're just super excited about it. So, you know, it was clear for us that it was Columbus. And, you know, there are some that are very walkable to the university and some that are a little further away. But that was a clear choice for us.
Yeah, I guess in this particular sub-asset class, it might be kind of difficult to buy something at the school that you went to that you want to be able to go to games, because that's where you're making your money is on game days. So this might be one of those sub asset classes that you kind of can't do what you can do in the larger asset class to buy something you want to vacation in. This maybe not so much. So guys, I didn't give a definition of what a game day rental is at the beginning, but if you haven't figured it out yet, it's for football games or baseball games or, you know, whatever school sport. I guess it could be professional also, but here in the Southeast, we're very, you know, college football only. And, but it could be for professional sports also. But for this particular episode, we're talking about college football. So my first question, and I think a lot of people's question for these is, all right, we know we're going to make a lot of money on football game days, maybe baseball, maybe basketball, depending on what school you're at. But what do we do What's the seasonality look like here?
It's very seasonal, but there's also a lot of opportunity outside of the football. You have 3 graduations a year. Almost the entire month of August, you have freshmen. I mean, really all classes moving in, but it's a lot of the freshmen family and parents coming and staying here. They'll stay here a weekend, some of them a week, to move their adult kiddos into places. In the spring, we have a lot of the fraternity and sorority parents weekends. So you really can capitalize on other events outside of game day. I mean, the ADR is not near as high, but there's a lot going on at major universities outside of football games or whatever sport is the draw. And then we had great luck. It was our plan and it worked out, the medium term rentals. So we put nurses in some of our condos. Usually they come in for 3 months. We had a couple of them extend to 6 months, but they all know that they have to move out by August. And so there are also professors that come in for a semester. So they may rent for 3 or 4 months. So this last year, we put nurses in most of our units. This next year, we're going to have it and see what happens. So we're going to keep it open for graduation and some of those other events, and then some for nurses, and then compare numbers at the end of next year.
Interesting. Ben, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, seasonality is major, and to own a rental, year round in an area where it's so seasonal, it's tough. There's 6 home games a year. And so outside of those 6 days, you really just have to think about, why are people coming to that part of town? I mean, we're a little lucky here in Columbus. We're the state capital. There's concerts, there's festivals. So we have a lot of reasons that people come outside of those 6 games. But really, kind of as she touched on as well, we think a lot of families come to the university, whether they're visiting their students or touring the university and showing the university to their kids, and sharing that experience that they had with it. So they love to make a meal. We make the house so that they can have a family dinner and share that with their students. And so there's just a lot of, and also professors will come as well to do a month-long thing as well. So there's a couple different reasons for the university, and then also just our town. There are times that we will shift to medium term as well, especially in January and February. There's not too many travelers coming to Columbus. And so we will use the midterm strategy during the winter as well.
I think this is a really good thing to point out, because I've seen an increasing number of people who want to get into buying short-term rentals, but they are scared to do a full-on vacation market like Gulf Shores, where you are, Jennifer, because you could not do medium term, really. I mean, you could do snowbirds if you have a 1-bedroom, maybe a 2-bedroom, but if you ever needed to convert it to anything else, you can't. And they want to have that security of being able to have medium-term renters or have other types of guests coming in. So I think that's something that's cool about this, is you can do the short-term for these big football weekends every year. And then you do have the ability to convert to some medium or some other types of short-term, because you have so many people coming in that are going to be a little bit transient just from the universities themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And something that I didn't mention and was off my radar was insurance companies. So families that have been displaced maybe by a fire or flood in their home. We had, in our 4-bedroom home, we had a family living there while the insurance company was remodeling their home. And I probably turned away 3 or 4 insurance companies this year because all of our units were full.
Oh, wow. That's good.
Oh, I was just going to add too that there's a demand from the students sometimes as well. Different times of year, we have groups that they checked out of the dorms at the end of one semester and they had another house, but they had a 3-month gap in the summer. So 4 girls rented a house together. And then also during COVID, when there was a shutdown, all of the flights were canceled. And so a lot of the international students were stuck. They got kicked out of the dorms. And that was another just a time when the student housing need, shifted to some of the houses that we had.
Yeah. And that summer rental really does make a lot of sense too. Because I remember when I was living in Austin, going to UT, my first summer after freshman year, I was like, man, I do not want to go back to Starkville, Mississippi. I was like, Mom, Dad, the soccer coach says they want us to stay and train here over the summer. So I'm going to do that. And it was hard to find a place to be able to rent, or even, like really anything at all. So that's a really good option. And I think a lot of kids probably want to have that option to stay over the summer. So that's a really good idea too. What would you say are the biggest differences between running a game day rental and like a vacation rental in a vacation market? What are some of the main things that you have to do a little bit differently?
First and foremost, it's fun. This is a lot of fun. The Gulf Shores and the Smokies can be stressful, as you know, at times. You don't really know who you're getting. So our properties here are luxury. So you're dealing with a certain type of clientele. Everybody's excited. Everybody's here to have a good time. And it's fun. Everybody's happy. And the seasonality can work for you, though. I've got to be focused during football season, and then I can relax the rest of the year. Our most difficult days are, we've got a nurse in here, and I don't know, a light bulb goes out or something like that. But we're not dealing with turnovers, 2 or 3 a week every weekend. So I really feel like you can relax more outside of the football season.
I would say one of the things is everybody's coming on the same day. So every rental in town, every cleaner in town, every vendor in town, they're focused on those days, and they're very busy. So, one of the things that we'll see is sometimes instead of preparing the day before, we're going to be preparing the week before. We're going to be doing some of those inspections, many, many days before to try and, just not ease the bottleneck on Saturday. So that, and also most of the time they want to come for one epic night or maybe 2 nights, but not a week. And so we really have to shift some of our revenue management strategy to lower our minimum night stays on some of those nights and increase our rates, as opposed to when we're in an off season, we're really targeting like a longer stay.
That makes sense. So you want to have that 1 night minimum. This is a market where this is kind of different than like a vacation market, where you want to have that 1 night stay because people are probably coming in, they're going to the game, they're going out partying and leaving the next day to go back home. So I think that's a really interesting call out here. And you said 1 epic night, which leads me to one of my questions about partying. So in other types of short-term rentals, we're like, no partiers, get out, go away. Like we don't have any rooms available, no vacancy. But this is a type of guest that this is what they're coming to do. They're most likely not coming to quietly sit and watch a football game and go to bed early. They're coming to party. So how do we get around some of these things? Do we see a lot of damage, or what are some things that we do to prepare for that?
I touched on this a little bit ago, but with the luxury properties, at least you're getting a certain type of clientele. Texas was here 2 weeks ago, and we had some Texas fan rent our 4-bedroom. And we encourage the gatherings. We advertise as hosting gatherings. We have a neat property. You can see the stadium. It's walkable. So you want people to have fun and hang out, tailgate and whatnot. So they probably had 30 people over. It's the most clean I've ever had a unit return to me. And they made the beds. And that is more typical in our market. Tuscaloosa has a lot of money. So we have people that take care of our things and respect them. Now, I do think as you get probably further out into the city and away from the stadium and some of the cheaper units, you might have an issue with that. But we have not had any issues with the parties. And I call them gatherings and host events and things like that versus a party.
Upscale party words.
Yes.
And I'll do you a favor and not mention the outcome of that Texas-Alabama game on here.
I can't hear you. Something.
Ben, what about you?
Yeah. So, this is something that we deal with all year round, unfortunately, is the potential threat of an unauthorized gathering. So, something we've had to do at our rentals just in general is to limit the occupancy to the number of guests that are on the reservation. And we do carry that out even on game day. So if it's a maximum 10 occupancy, we only allow 10 people there. Now, those 10 people, they can have a great time. We do use noise aware. We have noise aware in every property. We do use exterior security cameras to try and prevent a huge gathering or anything like that, or extra people from coming. But, here in Columbus on game day, it's a party in the entire city, and especially in the campus area. Most of our, what I would call game day rentals, we're not the only ones being loud in that area. And so, we will, sometimes tell our neighbors, hey, we're having a group here on game day. And we've not really had many issues on game day. Now, we do have other issues at other times, but insofar as damage, I would agree. We actually have pretty high-end guests that come on these game days and pay the high dollar rates, and they treat the house really well. They're excited. They're there with their family. They're sharing a tradition that has, been in their family for a long time. And those people, they respect the house, and they write us great notes afterwards and thank us and for the experience. And so we really, I will say it happens, but and the other thing that we do is we have like a damage waiver protection for our owners of the house, and some security deposits and some policies like that. But in large part, especially on the big games, like last year, Notre Dame played Ohio State, and ESPN Game Day was in town. And that was probably our biggest ADR we've ever had in years. And most of those folks, when they came, they spent the entire time out at the game, out at the tailgate, in the city, enjoying it.
Yeah, I think that Jennifer, you're right there, that a lot of, if you have a luxury rental, a lot of times if it's somebody that's going to be spending that much money, it's typically not always somebody who's going to be taking care of a unit. There's a guy in Starkville that owns like the area is called the Cotton District, which is like where all the cute little bars and restaurants, where all the college kids want to live and be able to walk to the stadium. And he's done some cool things. He actually passed away, I think, last year. But like all of his units have cool stained concrete floors, and they look cool, but they're also impossible to mess up. And they also have concrete. Some of them have concrete, some of them have granite countertops. So they kind of, when they're renovating something that they've bought, they renovate it to make sure that like college boys can't mess it up, or girls, but rambunctious college kids and partiers kind of can't mess it up. So I think there's a number of strategies here to kind of mitigate that stuff, but I don't think it's something you can really truly get away from, because that's what people are coming to do. But you're right, Ben, that's a really good point, that a lot of times they're going to be out at the tailgate and out at the game most of the time. They're not going to be in the house. So that makes sense too, because I think that that's going to answer a lot of people's questions about like, what do you do about partiers?
This episode is brought to you by Short-Term Rental Listing Advice. Join this Facebook group and post your listing to get advice from other hosts, including myself, on how you can improve your listing. Or just post your property so you can show off. Join us at strlistingadvice.com. That's strlistingadvice.com. This episode of the Short Term Show has been brought to you by your friendly short-term shop real estate agent. We are hyper-local and totally dedicated to your success. Whether you want to buy your next short-term rental or sell the one you currently own, we would be honored to earn your business. We are in all of the best vacation markets in America. Find us at theshorttermshop.com. That's theshorttermshop.com. Brokered by EXP.
So I think the other main question that a lot of people want to know is like, just how much can you get per night on game day?
I'll take this one. So I have a client that I manage a property for them. It's 5 bedrooms on each side duplex, and it's about 10 minutes from the stadium. And when I took him on, he said that the highest rate he'd ever gotten on a Saturday night was $400 a night. But on the Notre Dame Ohio State game, we got $2,700 a night for a 2-night reservation each night. And I just say that because I think a lot of hosts don't understand the value of these compression events sometimes, and just truly understanding, looking at hotel rates, looking at other options of what guests have. we can provide a tremendous amount of value to have a kitchen, to have a fenced yard, to be able to bring the family and relax and have a place to really share together is something that the hotels can't provide. And so it's a really great value proposition. We have one property near campus that's pretty close to the fraternity row, just really right in there. And it makes about $110,000 a year gross. And that's, it's a large property. It sleeps 15 or 16. And so, those large groups on those big nights, they do pay quite a bit.
How much you pay for that property, if you don't mind me asking, or what the value would be today?
Yeah, I don't own it. My client owns it, but I think he's all right with this. He bought it for $250. Today, it's probably worth $425.
Well, still, even at $425, that's great.
Yeah.
He's crushing it.
This was one, this is also, it used to be a duplex. They combined it into one unit. So it's got 6 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It serves large groups. And the other thing I'll say is even in off season, like we had a swimming competition, university, large groups of students will come and rent that house. So there is a good demand for that large property all year round.
Awesome. And I think you're right, like the students renting. So when I was playing soccer at UT, like they would have to get us 100 hotel rooms, not 100, but a lot of hotel rooms everywhere we went. But they were also trying to monitor us very, very closely to make sure nobody was like sneaking out to drink the night before a game or anything. And I feel like something like this would be it didn't exist then. Oh, I'm old, but now I think that's something that's probably attractive even to like coaches bringing in the teams from other places because you can keep track of everybody better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Jennifer, what are you seeing over in Tuscaloosa?
Well, our ADR is pretty high. So we have 2 2-bedroom units, a 3-bedroom, and a 4-bedroom. And on the big games, we can get $1,000 per bedroom. So our 4-bedroom property is running for $4,000 a night on the big games. And we do actually put a minimum on. I'm a hold your hand type of girl when it comes to running these things. So I start with a 3-day minimum. We've only owned them for a year, but 12 to 9 months out, even 6 months out. And then I'll price it like Ben was saying and increase my Friday and Saturday night, drop it to a 2-night minimum. And then, once we get within about 4 to 6 weeks of the game, I'll drop it to just Saturday nights and increase my Saturday night price. But I'll tell you, amongst those units, our 3-bedroom is the sweet spot. We get the most per bedroom and in the 3-bedroom. And my theory is, really here in Tuscaloosa, we're competing with the hotels. It's a small town. There are a lot of 2-bedroom condos out here that sleep 4 people will cram themselves into one hotel room if they're looking to save money. So the 2-bedroom units have a lot of competition. Our 3-bedroom really does not compete with the hotels. You have to get at least two hotel rooms. And it runs in more days than our 4-bedroom. So we get a higher ADR in our 4-bedroom, but it doesn't run as many days per year.
And what are you looking at price wise to buy a property similar to yours nowadays?
We bought it last year, our 4-bedroom for $825, our 3-bedroom condo. So that the 4-bedroom's a home, and then the 3-bedroom's a condo for $450. And then our 2-bedrooms are right above the 3-bedrooms. So it's in one home for $350. So we paid about $2 million for all 4 properties and closed within about 3 months of each other. We will gross about 300 this year amongst all 4.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Luke is going to listen to this and be out the door on his way to Lincoln to buy something.
Tell him to call me. Jim just got his license.
Oh my goodness. I did screw around on Zillow a little bit looking in Tuscaloosa when we decided to do this, and it's expensive. Like I think expensive. That's one thing that it might be different in your market, Ben, but I did cruise around some SEC schools because that's kind of what I know. And then I did look in Lincoln where Luke went to Nebraska, and it is not cheap. It's comparable sometimes to buying in a vacation market.
It is. And I'll tell you, even over the last year, the prices have skyrocketed. So I feel like we were really fortunate and made the right decision to jump in the market last year, because I'm not sure we could not buy these 4 properties today.
Well, the thing is, now we're in this situation where there's no inventory because nobody wants to list their houses because they don't want to have to go. They probably got a lower interest rate than what interest rates are today.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to list them. So then they have to go buy something else with a higher interest rate. So I think rates, to me, I'm by no means an economist, but I do pay attention. It seems like that rate number is going to be like 5.5 for people to actually start wanting to list their properties again. Because something like 85% of all mortgages are at 5.5 and under, and really only like 20% are under that 3% number. So once we get to that 5.5, I think we'll see some more supply come on. But I was looking in Starkville and there is nothing, not one thing, nothing for sale in Starkville. So it's rough out there right now. But if you can find something, I think it's definitely a good time to get in, because you can typically, because rates are higher, you've got less competition, it's harder to sell properties, and you can probably get a little bit more of a discount than you would be able to if they were lower. All right, so let's talk about location within the town. So do these things, are yours walkable to the stadium, or does walkable really even matter anymore now that we've got Uber? Or where is it in relation to the tailgating area? What's that look like?
So we are walkable, and I do think that matters in Tuscaloosa. It is a small town, and Ben touched on the bottleneck that happens on Saturdays. They have the golf cart joyrides and things like that will pick people up, but you really can't Uber too close to the stadium because they have all the streets blocked off, and we are just right outside of usually where they start blocking the streets off. So I do think in Tuscaloosa, it matters. You need to be able to walk. Now, walking could be, 2 minutes or 20 minutes, but you're going to get a higher ADR the closer you are to the stadium, obviously.
Yeah, we have both. We have some that are walkable and we have some that are drivable, and they both do well. There's 2 different types of guests, I think. Let me just back up. As a student, I lived 3 blocks from the stadium, and we just walk. Every student walks to the game. But some families that come don't want to be right in the student housing area. So a lot of times we'll get a nice family that'll book, 10-minute drive away. And they will love it. They will have a quiet place to sleep that night as well. And the other thing I'll say is that sometimes our groups, sometimes a family will come and only part of them have tickets to the game, and the other part are going to watch the game at home. So that is also part of our experience on some of the further out houses. We're leaving, a nice TV and a place to cook food and enjoy the game at the house for some folks that aren't going to the game as well. So those type of groups will like the house that's a 10-minute Uber ride away.
Yeah, I went to a game in Nebraska not that long ago, or probably 4 or 5 years ago, actually. And we went to somebody's friend of a friend's townhouse that was in the little tailgate area. I don't know what it's called. And they had that kind of set up. So it was a townhouse, but the garage was set up with AstroTurf with lines on it like a football field, and it had a big, gigantic TV screen. So they could just sit there and keep partying with everybody during the tailgate and not have to go in the stadium. So I think that that's a really cool idea too, if you have that ability to do something like that, because some people don't want to go. Like me, I don't necessarily want to go sit in the concrete stands for a while. I might for a little while, but I'm in my old age. I get sick of being around crowds, and I'd rather just go home and keep watching it somewhere else. So I think that's a cool option to have for people, for those of us whose social batteries don't always run very full.
Also, we deal with weather here in Columbus. So there will be some games late in October and November where it could snow and it could rain. And it could be a tough tailgate and tough to sit in the concrete stands for 3 hours. So to have that nice warm house that's close by, people, that's an extra value to have a vacation rental there. Okay,
so how are the processes that you use? We've touched on it a little bit in terms of like minimum night stay and things like that. What are the processes that you use to really optimize these game day rentals as opposed to, a more traditional short-term rental?
For me, it's a lot of the same. I use owner res to manage all of our properties. So I try to automate everything. I try to make it as easy on myself as possible. We use the TouchStay house manuals, all of that good stuff. The codes set themselves. So, and I do that for all of our properties. So my goal with all of our children is to make my life as easy as possible so that I don't have to be all hands on deck when people are checking in. And then Ben also touched on this, but we are prepping the entire week before. We're prepping this week. Ole Miss is in town this weekend. So of course we're full, and we've got a lot of people to plan for. But yeah, and once you get your processes into place, it's really not that hard.
You know, something that I just thought of while you were talking about University of Alabama. So if you guys are looking for like the right market to try, so the cool thing about Tuscaloosa is that it's kind of centrally located to the entire SEC. So, you know, Starkville is like 90 minutes away. All those kids and all those fans are going, whether it's a home or away game, they can easily drive. And I think if you're going to do that, that's important. You know, maybe don't buy at the school that's like, you know, don't buy in Hawaii where it's really difficult for everybody to get to, you know, buy at the school that's centrally located to the rest of the conference.
Yeah, we did. And our first game was Middle Tennessee, which is not a huge game, but Tennessee was able to drive in. Obviously, all the Bama fans were here. So it was packed this year for our first game. And we also do parking at our rentals. These properties are all next door to each other. So we've been able to capitalize on the parking as well, since we're in walking distance to the stadium.
What do you mean capitalize on parking?
Pay to park in our backyard.
Oh,
and we don't have a fence. So we can fit a lot of cars on our property. And that's just what you do in Tuscaloosa. So all the homes that are within walking distance, people just drive up and down the streets, and you pay somebody to stand outside with a parking sign and people park. The bank, it's interesting. We used a local bank for these properties, and they actually took our potential parking revenue in account on the pro forma.
Really? So it's that much of a thing where they're,
this is such a niche market, especially in Tuscaloosa. And that's why we went with a local bank, because we could not get anybody else to finance these for the price we were paying. They just couldn't see it. But the parking's a big deal here.
So who do you pay to stand in your yard with a parking sign?
My 21-year-old son, who transferred in. Girl, we're running a parking lot, though. I am out there. And if you told me I would be doing that a few years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. And that's what I meant by it's so much fun. I don't want to do this forever. We're only here for a total of 4 years, but we run the parking lot. We get to meet our guests. I mean, it is a ton of fun, and it gets me out of the house away from the kids. So
I hear that. Ben, back to process. Is there anything that you think you need to call out for our listeners about your processes running game day rentals?
Well, first, I just want to say that as a student, I was the parking sign guy. I was in the house doing the parking. But no, to optimize the rental, there's a couple things I'll say. One thing we go through and look at is the amenities that our guests are looking for when they're booking for game day. I mean, I mentioned this before, but a place to watch the game. You know, we want to make sure that the photos of the listing has all of these amenities that they're looking for, and checking those boxes. And so far as rates, I really like what you were saying about, as you get closer, you're lowering the minimum night stays. We do that. And I will even wait a little bit and see how the team's doing, and see how the other games shape up. Every other year we play Michigan here at home, and that's obviously a really important game for everybody. But sometimes it's a way more important game than it is other years, depending on how Michigan is doing. You know, Ohio State's always doing great. Last year we had Notre Dame come into town, and of course ESPN Game Day was here. That was well known in advance to be the biggest game of the year. This year we don't have too many big games. I'm really pulling for Penn State and Michigan State to do a little better than they are right now, so that those games are important. But I will use my rate strategy based on some of this stuff. So back in August, there was not much activity booking for these game days. And now when the first game hits and people are watching the game, then their families are like, oh, what game do you want to go to? Let's book a house. And so that we're seeing higher rates bookings happening a little bit closer to those games. But I would have just not been able to get it in July. So, I'm kind of targeting and waiting and seeing how the team's doing. Those are the ways that we are really optimizing them.
Do you guys get much traffic for other types of games outside of football? So maybe basketball, or I know in Starkville we get a lot of, or I say we like I own anything there. They get a lot of baseball stuff because they're there. I didn't go there. Why am I saying are? I did not go to MSU. Their baseball team's very good. And so they get a lot of traffic during baseball season. Do y'all get any other types of season traffic?
We had the medium term renters in all of our units, so I don't know the answer to that. But my guess would be probably not near as much, because I think a lot of those people are going to stay in the hotels. They're not looking to, barbecue outside and whatnot like you do in football season. But I would guess for a pretty low ADR, maybe, but it may not be worth the hassle of a turnover and whatnot when I can just have a medium term renter in there. But I'll tell you next year, because I'm going to experiment this next spring and see what happens.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear. What about you, Ben?
I would agree. I mean, I always am pushing for basketball fans to stay. It just doesn't happen that much. I mean, every now and then. Sometimes, like I was saying, the other sports, the teams will stay in some of our houses, or the vendors, maybe some people working at the game. But we don't get fans in bulk for basketball. Baseball, I think they have tournaments sometimes. So like people will stay for, many games in a row. But we really don't get many that are coming in for one. So football is where it's at.
Gotcha.
And I'll tell you, and Bama's basketball team, I did phenomenal last year. And even during that, before we had our medium term runners, I did not see a flurry of stays around those games.
Football's such a social thing anyway, compared to the other sports. I think, that's the difference. But good to know, because we don't want anybody to be buying stuff and expecting to get their doors blown off during basketball season. And that's not going to happen. So good expectations.
I will say March Madness played some games in Columbus. We had a lot of bookings for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. All right. Anything else that we haven't touched on related to running a game day rental that you think our listeners would benefit from hearing?
I can't think of anything. I think we've hit it all.
Covered it? Covered everything, Ben?
I think so. I mean, I would encourage folks that are looking to open one of these to be creative and think about the reasons that people are coming to that university outside of games, because that's really what's going to carry your rental. So they're out there. Just find them.
Yeah. And Avery, you touched on this just a little bit ago. Our worst case scenario is if we don't want to do short-term rentals, we rent out to students, and there is a market for that. And there's a backup plan. So when we move, if we decide we don't want to mess with it, today students are paying $1,200 per bedroom if you live walkable on the campus. And that covers our mortgage if that's the model we needed or wanted to go to.
Yeah, it's amazing the amount of money that alumni have for housing for their children.
I would not pay that for mine, for the record.
My assistant actually slacked me a question that I didn't think of. So is theming big? Like, do you have to hardcore theme in terms of the school spirit in order to get rentals? Or, obviously it needs to be cute, clean, comfortable, but do we need to theme super hard, or is that cheesy?
No, we put some tasteful elephants in the home, but nothing gaudy or crazy, because we're hosting other teams as well. And the last thing we want is for them to destroy our house because they hate our elephants. So
I think that's wise. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, all my clients and friends were saying, "Oh, I'm sure every house is scarlet and gray, right? Like it's all Ohio State themed." And what I kept telling them was actually, no, the people that rent our houses are the visiting team, and none of them want to stay in a scarlet and gray house. But To that point, we do now have a couple that are themed, and of course we target those for the home team. But we have to keep some that are not, for the away team to not destroy it. And that reminded me of one other thing I wanted to say about optimizing is, when there is a game that we are targeting, we'll look at the team we're playing, if it's Penn State, and we'll actually advertise our rentals to folks in around the Penn State University on Facebook. So we will specifically try to target the away visiting group to visit our houses and to make it attractive to them.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that's very wise. And I think that's honestly a big mistake that I think a lot of people would have made, is just going all out with the theming and then realizing when drunk people come home whose team has lost to your team, they're not going to be psyched to be hanging out in, Ohio State land. So I get it.
I want to say this: we are opening a themed rental that is themed Ohio State, and it's a 2-bathroom rental. The nicest bathroom we've renovated, of course, is very nice. And the other one is the Michigan bathroom. So
all right. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your time with our listeners. If they want to find your rentals or follow you guys, how can they do that? Where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find my company's rentals at housepitality.io. That's spelled HOUSEPITALITY. And you can find me as well, Ben, at housepitality.io.
All right. Jennifer?
We are at myvacationhomerental.com.
Myvacationhomerental.com. Got it. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on, and keep me posted on how everything goes with your game day rentals. I think this is a really, really interesting submarket, and I appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.